Dust motes danced in the afternoon sun, illuminating the attic's forgotten corners. Lila coughed, waving a hand in front of her face. Boxes overflowed with relics from her mother's life before Oakhaven. Before Lila, really. She was searching for something specific, something she'd only glimpsed in passing during a previous attic raid. Her mother's old journals from her time in the Serengeti. She found them tucked beneath a stack of yellowed newspapers. 3 thick, leather-bound volumes, their spines cracked with age. Lila carefully lifted them, the leather cool and smooth beneath her fingertips. She carried them downstairs to her room, the weight of them feeling significant, almost sacred. Curled up on her bed, she opened the first journal. The spidery handwriting was familiar, yet distant, like hearing her mother speak a language she'd long forgotten. The pages were filled with sketches of animals. Graceful gazelles, lumbering elephants and sleek cheetahs. Interspersed were entries detailing her mother's work, treating injured zebras, vaccinating wildebeest, and even once performing emergency surgery on a rhino caught in a poacher's snare. Lila devoured the stories, her imagination ignited. She pictured the vast golden plains, the endless blue sky, and the vibrant tapestry of life that pulsed across the savannah. One entry in particular caught her eye. Rescued a lion cub today. Abandoned, mother probably taken by poachers. Tiny thing barely bigger than a house cat. Named him Leo. Praying he makes it. Suddenly, Lila wasn't in her bedroom anymore. She was there on the savannah, the air thick with the scent of sun-baked earth and acacia trees. She saw herself not as Lila Abernathy, small-town girl, but as Lila Abernathy, fearless vet. A low whine echoed through the tall grass. She followed the sound, her heart pounding in her chest, until she found him. A tiny lion cub, caught in a thicket of thorns, his paw bleeding. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice calm and soothing, just like her mother's. "I'm here to help." With gentle hands, she carefully extracted the thorns, cleaned the wound with antiseptic wipes she miraculously produced from her bag, and bandaged his paw. The cub, no bigger than her own 2 hands, nuzzled against her, trusting her implicitly. She scooped him up in her arms, feeling the warmth of his tiny body against hers, promising him a safe place, a full belly, a future. The image shimmered, then faded, leaving Lila back in her bedroom, the journal open on her lap. She blinked, the dream still vivid in her mind. A surge of determination coursed through her. This summer she wouldn't just be visiting her mother, she would be helping. She would learn, she would observe, and she would make a difference. She closed the journal, a new resolve hardening her gaze. Time to pack. She pulled her worn duffel bag from the closet. First, her sturdy hiking boots, essential for navigating the rugged terrain. Then, her khaki pants and long-sleeved shirts, protection against the relentless sun and thorny bushes. Her binoculars, for spotting elusive wildlife. Her sketchbook and pencils, to capture the beauty she knew she would find. A first aid kit, stocked with bandages, antiseptic wipes, and pain relievers. Bug spray, of course. And finally, tucked into a side pocket, a small, well-worn book on African wildlife, its pages dog-eared and underlined. As she zipped up the bag, Lila couldn't suppress a wide grin. The savannah was calling, and she was ready to answer. This summer wouldn't just be a vacation. It would be an adventure. A chance to step into her mother's world, to make her own mark, and maybe, just maybe, to rescue a lion cub of her own. The attic dust seemed a small price to pay for the dreams that were about to come true. Welcome to the clinic. The clinic, a sun-baked adobe structure, stood smaller than Lila expected. A generous porch offered respite from the sun's intensity, alive with insect chirps and distant bird songs. The air carried a blend of clinical cleanliness mingled with a raw, untamed scent of the bush. "Welcome," Dr. Emily greeted, her smile radiating like the African sun. Enfolding Lila in a hug, her hands rested warmly on her shoulders. "Ready to begin?" Lila's eager nod vibrated with anticipation. "Absolutely." Inside, controlled activity reigned. Bandages formed neat stacks, Instruments gleamed under stark lighting, and a generator thrummed a steady bass line. A young man in a worn khaki shirt diligently sterilized equipment, while a woman in scrubs spoke urgently into a handheld radio. Her brow creased in concentration. "This is Ben and Amina," Dr. Emily introduced, indicating her colleagues. "They're the heart of this operation." Before Lila could respond, a plaintive bleating diverted her. A young gazelle lay trembling in a makeshift enclosure, its leg bent at an awkward angle. "Snared this morning," Dr. Emily explained, her voice losing its affectionate lilt, adopting a professional tone. Lila grabbed the antiseptic and gauze. "Gently now, she's terrified." Cautiously, Lila approached, her heart aching for the frightened creature. The gazelle's dark eyes mirrored raw panic, its delicate nostrils flared. She sprayed the wound with care, wincing as the animal recoiled. The sharp tang of blood mingled with the antiseptic scent. "Perfect," Dr. Emily encouraged, examining the injury. "A clean break, thankfully. A splint will do the trick, and she should recover completely." For the next hour, Lila assisted her mother, steadying the gazelle, handing instruments, offering soothing words. She watched, mesmerized, as Dr. Emily's experienced hands moved with fluid precision, aligning the bone and securing the splint. Finally bandaged and settled, the gazelle appeared calmer. "You have a gift, Lila," Dr. Emily remarked, wiping her forehead. "A natural touch." Lila's face flushed with pride. "Tell me about Spot," she blurted. "The leopard you rescued." A nostalgic smile touched Dr. Emily's lips. "Spot was a survivor. I found her as a cub, helpless after a flash flood. She was weak, severely dehydrated, barely clinging to life. Weeks of around-the-clock care brought her back. Ultimately, she returned to the wild, a powerful, self-sufficient leopard." "Did you ever see her again?" Lila asked, enthralled. "Once," Dr. Emily replied softly. "Years later, I was tracking a rhino when she crossed my path. She was larger, stronger, with cubs of her own. Our eyes met. A flicker of recognition sparked in hers before she melted back into the bush. It was one of my life's most fulfilling moments." Lila pictured the scene: the magnificent leopard, the vulnerable cubs, her mother's unspoken triumph. A sudden bark shattered the reverie. "Sounds like our next arrival," Dr. Emily said, a hint of exhaustion in her tone, yet her eyes shone. "Ready for the next challenge?" Lila nodded, instinctively reaching for the antiseptic. The savannah remained a land of wild uncertainties, but here, within this humble clinic, she and her mother could make a tangible difference, one creature at a time. The potent mix of purpose and urgency banished any lingering reservations about her abandoned life. The legend of Spot. "Tell me about Spot again," Lila urged, etching spirals into the ochre earth with her toes. The sun bled across the horizon, igniting the acacia trees with fiery hues. The air, redolent with the perfume of parched grasses and smoldering wood, vibrated with the rising chirps of the evening insects. Emily exhaled softly, amusement dancing in her eyes. "It's quite a tale, Lilabug." "I know, but it's my favorite. Please." Lila's gaze, so bright and insistent, was impossible to deny. Emily leaned back against the sturdy tire of the Land Rover, her thoughts turning towards the boundless plains. "All right then. Must have been 7 years ago. I was greener then, still finding my feet in this life." Old Man Tembo radioed, reporting a leopard trapped in a snare close to the riverbank. A despicable poacher's trap. Lila's breath hitched. "How cruel." "It was," Emily affirmed, a steely edge entering her tone. "When I arrived, she was a whirlwind of fury and terror. The wire had bitten deep into her foreleg, a vicious cut. She was magnificent, even in her distress, a creature of pure muscle and grace, her rosettes scattered like constellations on her tawny coat." Emily paused, recalling the cold dread that had gripped her. Approaching her was precarious. She was a force of nature, agonizing and cornered. "But you weren't scared, were you?" Lila breathed, her voice thick with awe. Emily chuckled wryly. Petrified. Utterly petrified. But I knew I had to intervene. I deployed a tranquilizer dart, then waited, every nerve on edge, for it to take hold. Even then, getting close was a gamble. I remember the hot musk of her breath, the tremors that still rippled through her body despite the sedative. Lila inched closer, completely absorbed. What did you do next? I carefully snipped the cruel wire, cleansed the wound meticulously, and stitched it closed. It was a ghastly laceration. I feared she might lose the limb. The real trick was preventing infection. Bandaging it like I would a domestic pet wasn't an option. I had to trust to the wild, to her own instincts to ward off the flies. So, you just abandoned her? Lila queried, her small brow furrowed with concern. Not quite. I observed her from afar for weeks, ensuring she could hunt, that the wound remained clean. It was touch and go there for a while. She favored the leg, limping noticeably. But leopards are survivors, resilient beyond measure. Eventually she recovered. She thrived. Emily's smile was radiant, filled with genuine joy. I christened her Spot on account of a unique cluster of rosettes near her shoulder, shaped remarkably like, well, a spot. And that's why she doesn't fear you? Lila questioned, her voice hushed with wonder. I can't say definitively that she remembers me, Emily admitted, a sliver of uncertainty creeping in. Animals don't process memories as we do. But perhaps she recognizes a familiar scent, the rumble of the engine. Or maybe she simply senses benevolent intent. Emily rose, dusting off her khakis. The truth is, Lilabug, every creature, even the most formidable predator, warrants our empathy. It's rarely easy, often dangerous, but always worthwhile. Lila mirrored her, her face illuminated with a fresh comprehension. I want to be just like you, Mama, she declared, her voice ringing with fervent resolve. Rescuing animals, being courageous. Emily drew Lila into a tight embrace. You already possess courage, Lila. And you have an exceptionally kind heart. That's paramount. She squeezed her daughter close, a shadow of unease flickering in her eyes. The savannah held untold dangers, and she felt, with a profound certainty, that their shared journey had only just begun. Yearning for adventure. The clinic air buzzed with life, the trilling chorus of rescued weavers and the rapid-fire drumming of a baby dik-dik's pulse. Lila, brow creased in focused intent, dabbed at a weaver's injured wing with antiseptic. The tiny creature recoiled, fear blazing in its bead-like eyes. Steady, little one, she soothed, her voice a gentle caress. Almost done. For weeks, her days had been filled with the care of these smaller creatures. Avian patients with fractured flight, orphaned galagos, and shy mongoose kits. It was fulfilling work, no doubt. To witness their recovery, to see their strength bloom. It nourished her soul. Yet, a subtle unease persisted, a longing for something beyond. Her mother, Dr. Emily Abernathy, entered, her face bearing the familiar map of exhaustion. How fares our feathered contingent? She inquired, surveying the improvised bird sanctuary. Improving, Lila responded, carefully securing the tiny wing. He'll be airborne before long. A beat of silence then. Mama, could I assist with the larger animals soon? The zebras, perhaps. Even the big cats. Emily's smile wavered, a fleeting cloud darkening her expression. Lila, we've discussed this. The great beasts require specialized acumen and years of dedicated practice. But I'm absorbing knowledge at an amazing rate. Lila countered, a touch of impatience in her voice. I understand wound care medication. I learn quickly. Emily knelt, enfolding Lila's hand in hers. I know you do, darling. And I cherish your eagerness. But magnitude isn't paramount. This minuscule weaver's life holds equal significance to a lion's. Each being warrants our devoted attention. She indicated the dik-dik, its slender limbs quivering. This one was ensnared. Without us, he wouldn't have stood a chance. Each rescue, regardless of scale, has consequence. Lila's shoulders slumped, her enthusiasm momentarily extinguished. She recognized the truth in her mother's words, of course. Still, the image of the leopards, their movements liquid grace, their golden eyes gleaming with untamed wisdom, lingered in her mind. She yearned for involvement, to contribute in a more meaningful capacity. The memory of aiding in the rescue of them and their cubs felt like ancient history. She gingerly returned the weaver to its nest, a woven cradle of miniature proportions. A soft chirp, a settling into the comforting embrace of the lining. Lila watched, her heart melting. Perhaps her mother possessed insight she lacked. Maybe she was rushing things. What of the rhino calf? The one with the festering wound? She ventured, shifting the subject. Might I observe your treatment? Emily's gaze softened. You may certainly observe. But remember, she cautioned, a quiet warning underlying her tone. Observation holds equal importance to direct action. Attend closely, absorb everything within reach, and cultivate patience. Your moment will arrive. Lila nodded, a spark of anticipation rekindled. She might not be tangling with lions as of yet, but she could still expand her knowledge, still offer assistance. And perhaps, in time, she could demonstrate to her mother the readiness within her for a greater challenge. The savannah stretched out before her, a tapestry of wonders and perils, and Lila was resolved to unravel its secrets. Cry for help. The telephone's sudden ring sliced through the tranquil morning like a knife. Emily Abernathy, mid-examination of a boy with a nagging cough, offered Mrs. Kamani an apologetic look. Just a moment. She rushed to the counter. Abernathy Clinic, Emily speaking. Jomo Kenyatta's voice, strained with urgency, buzzed across the line. Dr. Abernathy, it's Jomo. A leopard's been ensnared. Near my farm's southern edge. Emily's grip tightened on the receiver. Snare. Such needless cruelty. Badly injured, Jomo. I haven't dared approach close enough to tell, doctor. Distressed, emitting deep growls. But I saw the trap, a wire noose. Seems tied around a front leg. Keep your distance, Jomo. Absolutely do not go near it. I'll be there as soon as possible. She hung up and faced her daughter Lila, who was perched on a stool, engrossed in her sketchbook. Leopard. Lila's head snapped up, eyes alight. A real leopard. Hurt? Yes, darling. Jomo says it's caught in a snare. I must go. With practiced movements, Emily opened drawers and gathered vital supplies. Sedatives, bandages, antiseptic, and a dart gun. Can I come? Please, Mama, I can help. Lila pleaded, springing from the stool. Emily hesitated. It could be dangerous, Lila. A trapped leopard is a terrified leopard. But I'll be careful. Promise. And I can help you assemble everything. Lila's enthusiasm was a tangible thing, radiating from her like the desert sun. She began sorting through instruments, her small hands surprisingly adept at anticipating Emily's needs. A sigh escaped Emily's lips. Lila's passion for animals was both a comfort and a source of worry. All right, but you stay glued to my side. No arguments. And if I tell you to stay in the Land Rover, you remain there. Agreed. Agreed. Lila's face split into a radiant grin as she grabbed her own small backpack. May I bring my binoculars? Emily nodded, reaching for a thick blanket. And a bottle of water. The heat will be intense. The poor creature is likely dehydrated. Within moments, the rescue kit was complete, and they were bouncing along the rutted dirt track in the Land Rover, a cloud of red dust swirling in their wake. The air vibrated with the scent of parched grasses and thorn trees. Lila, glued to her binoculars, diligently searched the horizon. The landscape wavered under the oppressive heat. Mama, Lila said softly, her voice unusually somber. Those snares, who sets them? A shadow crossed Emily's face. Poachers, Lila. People who value profit above life itself. Lila lowered her binoculars, her brow furrowed in confusion. But that's horrible. How can they? Emily squeezed Lila's knee gently. I don't know, sweetheart. Some people simply don't appreciate what cannot be bought or sold. After a pause, she added, that's why it is crucial we do all we can. The Land Rover shuddered to a halt at the boundary of Jomo's farm. He stood waiting, his expression a mask of concern. It's this way, doctor, he indicated, pointing towards a dense thicket bristling with thorns. I marked the trail with white cloth strips. Emily gripped the dart gun, flicking off the safety. Stay close behind me, Lila. Jomo, you two. Let's proceed with caution. The very air thrummed with anticipation. A low growl, a mere whisper, emanated from the depths of the thicket. The leopard awaited. Trap. The Land Rover lurched to a stop, dust billowing around it like a startled spirit. Lila was already halfway out the door, her eyes scanning the tall grass bordering the acacia trees. Spot! She called, her voice tight with worry. The usual playful woof that greeted their arrival was conspicuously absent. Emily followed, her medical bag bumping against her hip. A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. Spot always met them. Always. Then Lila gasped, pointing towards a thicket of thorny bushes. Mom! Over there! They pushed through the dense vegetation, thorns snagging at their clothes. The air hung heavy with a metallic tang of blood and the sharp, acrid scent of fear. And then they saw him. Spot was caught in a crude snare, a thick wire biting deep into his left front leg. He whimpered, a low, guttural sound of pain that tore at Lila's heart. He thrashed weakly, his brown eyes wide with terror. Easy, boy, easy, Emily soothed, her voice calm and steady despite the frantic beat of her own heart. We're here now. We'll get you out. Lila knelt beside the leopard, her hand outstretched but not touching. It's okay, Spot. We won't hurt you. Tears welled in her eyes. Emily carefully assessed the snare. It was cruelly simple, designed to tighten with every movement. The wire had already cut deep into the muscle, and the leg was swollen and inflamed. Lila, hand me the wire cutters, please. And be careful. With painstaking precision, Emily worked to loosen the snare. Spot flinched with each movement, but he seemed to understand that she was trying to help. Finally, with a snap, the wire parted. Spot collapsed, panting, onto the ground. Good boy, Spot. Good boy, Lila whispered, finally daring to stroke his head. His fur was rough beneath her fingers, matted with dirt and blood. Emily examined the wound more closely. It was deep, but thankfully, the bone didn't seem to be broken. Infection was the immediate concern. We need to get him back to the clinic, she said, her brow furrowed. This needs to be cleaned and bandaged properly. As Emily prepared a makeshift splint, Lila's gaze drifted to the ground around them. The soil was soft and sandy, easily marked. She noticed something that Emily, focused on Spot, had missed. Smaller paw prints, distinct from Spot's larger ones, were scattered around the snare. They were faint, almost obscured by the struggle, but they were definitely there. Mom, Lila said, her voice low and urgent. Look. Emily followed her daughter's gaze. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the smaller prints. Leopard cubs, she murmured, a wave of understanding washing over her. This snare wasn't meant for Spot. It was meant for them. The realization sent a chill down her spine. Where was their mother? And were there more snares? The missing cubs. Lila settled to her haunches, a fingertip outlining a tiny paw print pressed into the yielding soil. Mom, look. These are way smaller than Spot's. Emily squatted beside her, concern etching lines into her forehead. She scrutinized the miniature impressions, contrasting them with the familiar rosette pattern of Spot's. You're right, honey. Definitely cubs. A wave of comprehension surged through her, followed by a quick, anxious breath. Oh goodness. We have to find them. Oh. Lila's heart leaped within her chest. Spot had cubs. The thought of the fragile, newborn leopards alone on the savannah sparked a surge of protectiveness. Where could they be? Did Spot find a safe place for them? That's what we need to determine, Emily replied, her voice edged with worry. Her gaze swept the surrounding landscape, lingering on thickets of foliage and the sturdy trunks of acacia. Leopards often tuck their young away in rocky nooks or amidst dense undergrowth, somewhere sheltered, concealed. The wind strengthened, creating a restless whisper through the acacia leaves. Lila's eyes darted skyward. Azure faded as a roiling mass of storm clouds encroached. Mom, look! A storm's coming. Emily followed her daughter's gaze. An approaching tempest loomed, a dark, swirling presence. Plump raindrops began to punctuate the dry earth, each creating a tiny plume of dust. We don't have much time, she stated, her voice tight. If those cubs are exposed when the heavens open, she left the thought hanging unspoken. We have to find them, Lila urged, her voice laced with resolve. Let's split up. You take the route towards the kopje. I'll search along the riverbed. Emily hesitated, anxiety flickering in her eyes. Lila, the weather is turning. This storm. But Mom, we can't just abandon them. They're newborns. Spot would want us to help. Lila's eyes shone with determined appeal. Emily released a sigh, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She knew Lila was right. Inaction was unthinkable. All right, she conceded, her voice resolute. But we stay within shouting distance. No wandering off alone. And if it becomes a deluge, we retreat to the Land Rover. Agreed. Agreed. Lila responded, already pivoting toward the riverbed. The wind buffeted her, and the rain intensified, clinging to her clothes. She ventured into the tall grass, her eyes diligently scanning the ground for any sign of the cubs. Lila, wait. Emily's call was nearly swallowed by the rising gale. Look for disturbances in the earth, broken twigs, anything that indicates passage. And be careful. Lila raised a hand in acknowledgement, her focus already fixed. A peal of thunder reverberated across the savannah, a deep, ominous growl that sent a chill down her spine. The race against the tempest was underway. A mother's love. Mom, wait! Lila called, scrambling over a patch of dry grass, her boots kicking up dust devils. Emily paused, shading her eyes against the harsh morning sun. Lila, we've been searching for hours. We need to be systematic. Stick to the grid I mapped out. Lila, however, was pointing towards a cluster of rocky outcrops in the distance, their jagged edges silhouetted against the pale sky. But what about there? Leopards like rocky places, right? For shelter. Emily sighed, the lines around her eyes deepening. It's a possibility, but a small one. We need to focus on areas closer to where we found Spot. Cubs wouldn't wander too far. But maybe she hid them first, Lila insisted, her voice laced with urgency. Before she got caught in the snare. Maybe she knew something was wrong. Emily studied her daughter's face, seeing the earnest plea in her eyes. She recognized that spark of intuition, that uncanny ability Lila had to connect with animals. All right, she conceded, but we'll check it quickly, and then we go back to the grid. The outcrop was more challenging to navigate than it looked. Loose stones shifted under their feet, and thorny bushes clawed at their clothes. Lila, nimble and determined, took the lead, her eyes scanning every nook and cranny. Listen, she whispered suddenly, stopping by a narrow opening in the rocks. Emily held her breath. A faint, high-pitched mewling reached her ears. It was coming from inside. She pushed aside a tangle of vines, revealing a small cave. Inside, huddled together for warmth, were two tiny leopard cubs. Their eyes were barely open, their fur still downy soft. They shivered, their small bodies trembling. "Oh, you poor things," Lila breathed, gently scooping one of the cubs into her arms. It nuzzled into her, its tiny claws pricking her skin. Emily carefully gathered the other cub. They were cold and weak, but alive. The drive back to the clinic was a blur of hurried phone calls and whispered reassurances. Emily prepped a warm incubator, her movements precise and efficient. Lila cradled the cubs, feeding them warmed milk from a syringe. When Spot was wheeled in, still groggy from the anesthetic, her eyes widened. A low rumble escaped her throat, a sound filled with longing and recognition. Emily gently placed the cubs beside her. Spot sniffed them, nudging them with her nose. The cubs instinctively began to suckle, their tiny paws kneading her fur. A look of profound peace settled over Spot's face. Lila watched, tears welling up in her eyes. "A mother's love," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Emily put an arm around her daughter, squeezing her shoulder. "Yes, Lila," she said softly. "A mother's love." And sometimes she thought a little girl's intuition. Back to the wild. Lila hummed a tuneless melody, carefully saturating a lint-free cloth. Spot, unusually compliant, twitched, granting access to a superficial cut on her side. The clinic air, while still carrying whispers of blood and disinfectant, now held the comforting warm aroma of the leopard cub's milk. "Steady now," Lila murmured, her voice a calming balm against the quickened pulse in her veins. She stole a glance at the trio of cubs, a wriggling mass of rosettes in their enclosure. They gained size daily, their playful snarls and awkward lunges growing bolder. Dr. Abernathy walked in, her face a map of fatigue and contentment. "How are my patients faring today?" "Spot's healing beautifully," Lila reported, indicating the faint scratches. "These are nearly gone. The cubs are, well, they're a handful. Mostly roughhousing and feeding." Her mother's lips curved into a smile. "Precisely as it should be. Their weight's up, their eyes sparkle. You've been invaluable, Lila." "Thank you." Lila's face brightened, the appreciation a comforting warmth. She cherished this feeling of purpose, genuinely contributing to the well-being of these magnificent animals. She had dedicated hours to observing them, decoding their unique mannerisms. The runt of the litter, a feisty little female, invariably found a way to wriggle free of the pile, exploring the enclosure's perimeter with insatiable curiosity. Days blurred into weeks, defined by the rhythm of cleaning, feeding, and observing Spot and her offspring. Lila began to discern the subtle indicators of recovery. The returning strength in Spot's stride, the cubs' improving coordination. She devoured every book on leopards she could find, absorbing knowledge of their hunting strategies, their social dynamics, and their crucial role in the savannah's delicate balance. "When will they be ready to go home?" Lila inquired one afternoon, a note of eagerness in her voice. Her mother sighed, brushing a hand through her short, practical crop. "Patience, sweetie. Spot needs to be fully restored, robust enough to hunt and safeguard her cubs. And the cubs must be able to keep pace with her, to master the skills essential for survival." "But they're practically ready," Lila insisted, gesturing towards the now rambunctious cubs, embroiled in a mock skirmish over a frayed scrap of burlap. "Almost," Dr. Abernathy gently corrected. "We must ensure they have the absolute best chance." The long-awaited day finally dawned. The atmosphere thrummed with anticipation, mirroring Lila's own inner excitement. Spot, her fur gleaming like polished brass, restlessly circled in the transport crate, her low rumbles a blend of nervousness and eagerness. The cubs, blissfully unaware of the significance of the moment, tumbled around her paws. Dr. Abernathy gave the GPS collar a final check, her movements precise and unhurried. "All right, let's do this." The drive to the release site passed in near silence, broken only by the hum of the Land Rover's engine and the steady pulse of Lila's heart. They picked a secluded spot near a craggy rock formation, far removed from any human habitation. Dr. Abernathy unlatched the crate, quickly stepping back. Spot paused, testing the air, then exploded outwards, her sleek form a flash of gold against the parched earth. The cubs followed, spilling out after her, their youthful exuberance unrestrained. Spot hesitated, glancing back at Lila and her mother, a fleeting expression in her amber eyes that Lila couldn't quite decipher. Then, with a soft grunt, she pivoted and vanished into the tall grasses, her cubs hot on her heels. Lila stood and watched until they were gone, swallowed whole by the immensity of the savannah. A knot tightened in her throat, a poignant mix of elation and melancholy. They were free. They were where they belonged. They were wild once more.